What would you do if doing nothing felt safer, but staying meant risking everything? Some moments do not ask for permission. They arrive quietly, disguise themselves as routine, and then demand a choice that will follow you for the rest of your life. That night at Lumiere, no one expected anything to happen. And that was exactly why it almost did. At Lumiere, Victoria Sterling, a billionaire chief executive known for decisions as cold as numbers on a balance sheet, sat alone in her usual corner, wrapped in silence she could afford. Friday night unfolded with familiar precision. Soft jazz drifted from a piano. Cutlery whispered against porcelain. Downtown lights flickered through floor-to-ceiling windows, reflected in crystal glasses and polished silverware. Victoria never noticed the four men who walked in. They did not come for dinner. They came carrying anger sharpened by months of loss, jaws clenched, eyes scanning the room like hunters locking onto prey. Across the dining room, Darnell Brooks moved between tables with deliberate invisibility. 3 years on the Friday shift had taught him how to exist without being seen. Refill water before it is half empty. Clear plates from the right. Smile, politely, then vanish. The job paid the rent. It paid Lily's school fees. And it let him pick his daughter up every afternoon before work. He was 35, though fatigue added years to his face. Broad shoulders rounded slightly inward, as if shrinking was a learned habit. Dark brown skin catching warm light. Close-cropped hair, tight curls overdue for a trim. A trimmed beard hiding the sharper lines of the police officer he used to be. Most customers barely noticed him. Darnell preferred it that way. Victoria arrived at exactly 8, as she always did. Darnell watched her hand her coat to the hostess and walk straight to table 12. Twice a week. Always alone. Always in a dark suit that signaled authority without effort. Auburn hair pulled tight. Movements precise, economical, trained not to waste energy. He had served her around 20 times. She ordered efficiently. Ate quickly. Left generous tips without eye contact. No small talk. No confessions. Just transaction. In a strange way, Darnell respected that. He placed her usual sparkling water on the table without being asked. She gave a small nod and returned to the tablet beside a vase of white orchids, her fingers moving fast, tension visible even from a distance. Darnell turned toward the service station. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from Lily. "Dad, can you come home early tonight?" His chest tightened. "What is wrong?" "Nothing. Just miss you." He glanced at the clock above the bar. 3 hours left. "I will be home by 11:30. Love you." "Love you too." He slid the phone away and picked up a tray of appetizers, delivering calamari to a loud table of lawyers whose laughter spilled across the room. He smiled, escaped, and breathed again. Then the front door opened. Darnell looked up automatically. 4 men stepped inside, and they did not belong at Lumiere. Work jackets. Worn jeans. One in a faded Carhartt coat stained with old paint. The hostess approached with her practiced smile, but they walked past her without slowing. They were not looking for seats. They were searching. The tallest one, gray-haired with a rigid jaw, spotted Victoria's corner. His expression sharpened. Focused. Final. And something cold climbed Darnell's spine. An instinct he had tried to bury 3 years earlier. The alert that separated routine from danger. The feeling that told him this night was about to fracture. He had left the police force. But the instinct had never left him. Before we go on, if this story has already pulled you in, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Here we tell powerful true stories about hard choices and moments that change everything. Now, let's continue. The 4 men moved past the hostess without waiting to be seated. Chairs scraped loudly as they claimed a table near Victoria, close enough to watch her, close enough to make their presence felt. Other diners glanced over with mild annoyance, then looked away, because most people do that, they look away until they cannot. The men did not open menus. They did not reach for water. They simply sat, shoulders tight, voices low, heat building in their words. Darnell picked up a water pitcher and drifted closer, using the excuse of refilling glasses at a nearby table. He kept his movements casual, but placed himself where he could catch fragments. "That is her," the tall one said, voice edged with restrained anger. "Sterling Ventures. The chief executive." "You sure?" another asked, younger, hands twitching with nervous energy. "I memorized her face from the news," the younger man said. "That is Victoria Sterling." The third leaned in. "So what do we do?" "Just sit here." "We let her know," the tall one replied. "We let her see what her decisions cost." Darnell's grip tightened on the pitcher. He glanced toward Victoria. She was still focused on her screen, unaware, isolated in her corner of money and glass and soft light. The chandelier glow made her look almost fragile, despite the severity in her expression, like someone who had built armor because the world kept swinging. Darnell's mind raced. These men were not here for dinner. Their energy was wrong. Collective tension, the kind that preceded violence. But what could he do, right now? Call the manager based on a feeling? Have them thrown out before they had done anything? And yet, he had seen this before. The stillness before the storm, when angry men gather courage from each other, when each one feeds the next until someone finally steps forward. Then the tall one looked directly at Darnell. Their eyes met for 2 seconds, and something flickered across the man's face. Recognition. Darnell's heart rate jumped. He turned away, moving toward the kitchen, trying to look normal while his memory snapped into place. Rosie's Bar, South Side, 5 years ago. A fight that spilled into the street. Darnell had been first on scene, back when he wore a badge, back when his voice carried authority without effort. He had broken it up before anyone got seriously hurt. Arrests, 1 night in jail, fines. Nothing major, until the tall one, Victor, stared at him during booking and said, quietly, like a promise, "I do not forget faces, Officer Brooks." Darnell forced himself to breathe. Maybe Victor only thought he recognized him. Different hair. A beard. 30 pounds heavier. A life that had worn him down. But even if Victor remembered, this was not about Darnell. This was about Victoria Sterling. A chair slid back. The younger man stood, moving toward Victoria's table, steps quick, anger and desperation boiling under his skin. Darnell's body moved before his mind caught up. He crossed the dining room and intercepted the man 3 steps before Victoria. "Sir, can I help you with something?" Darnell said, voice light, professional, but his stance was firm, placed directly in the man's path. Up close, Darnell saw it, the sleepless eyes, the raw edge of a man who had been losing for months. "I need to talk to her," the man said. "If you would like to speak with another guest, I can pass along a message," Darnell replied, calm, steady, not moving aside. "Just get out of my way." Victoria looked up, finally noticing the confrontation. Confusion shifted into guarded focus. And behind the younger man, Victor stood up. The other 2 followed. 4 men. 1 waiter. A room full of civilians. A woman who did not yet understand how close the night was to changing. Darnell felt the moment crystallize. And he knew, instantly, that walking away was no longer an option. Victor took a slow step forward, his presence shifting the air around them. He was taller than Darnell remembered, or maybe memory softened people over time. Up close, his face carried new lines, deeper ones, carved by long nights and longer resentment. His gray hair was pulled back loosely, and his eyes burned with something unfinished. "Step aside," Victor said. His voice was low, controlled, but underneath it trembled with pressure. "This does not concern you." Darnell did not move. "Sir, this is a private establishment. If there is an issue, I can get a manager," Darnell replied. Victor smiled, but it was the kind that never reached the eyes. "We are past managers. Past polite conversations. Victoria stood up slowly. She was not tall, but she stood straight, shoulders squared. Her gaze moved from the men to Darnell, measuring the situation with quick intelligence. "Gentlemen," she said, "if you have business with me, you can schedule a meeting through my office." The younger man laughed sharply. "Meeting? You closed our factory with an email." Murmurs spread across nearby tables. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations died down. People sensed the shift now. Darnell raised one hand slightly, a subtle gesture meant to calm, not command. "Let us take a breath," he said. "Everyone here is trying to enjoy their evening." Victor leaned closer, close enough that only Darnell could hear. "Still playing the peacekeeper, Officer Brooks?" The word hit him like a punch. Darnell kept his face neutral, but his pulse spiked. "I do not know what you are talking about," he said. Victor chuckled. "You broke my nose once. Outside Rosie's bar. I spent 3 days unable to breathe properly. Lost my job after that fight." Darnell remembered. The blood. The broken bottle. The choice he made in half a second to stop a man from killing another. "You made your own choices that night," Darnell replied quietly. Victor's eyes hardened. "And she made hers." He turned to Victoria. "You cut our town loose. 300 people unemployed. Families destroyed. Also your shareholders could smile." Victoria's jaw tightened. She did not deny it. The factory was hemorrhaging money. "We offered severance packages and relocation options." "Relocation," the younger man snapped. "To where?" "Another dying town." Victor raised a hand, silencing him. "We are not here to debate economics," Victor said. "We are here because people like you never have to see the damage you cause." Darnell sensed movement behind him. The other two men shifted, spreading slightly. A classic surround. He adjusted his stance, feet planted, body angled to block access to Victoria. "Sir," Darnell said firmly, "I am asking you to leave." Victor's gaze flicked toward the exits. Toward the patrons. Toward the lack of visible security. Or what? For a split second, Darnell saw Lily's face in his mind. Her smile. Her small hands holding his jacket when he left for work. Then the younger man lunged. Not at Victoria. At Darnell. The impact slammed into his shoulder, knocking him sideways. Glass shattered as a nearby table tipped. Someone screamed. Darnell recovered fast, years of muscle memory snapping back. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, redirected momentum, and slammed him against a chair. The dining room erupted into chaos. Victor shouted. The other two surged forward. Victoria stumbled back, heart pounding, as Darnell stepped fully into his old role without thinking. "Get down," he shouted, his voice cutting through panic. A punch grazed his jaw. Another man grabbed his apron, tearing it loose. Darnell swung, precise, controlled, aiming to disable, not destroy. But there were too many of them. And no backup was coming. A heavy blow caught Darnell in the ribs, forcing air from his lungs. He staggered but stayed upright, pure stubborn will keeping him on his feet. Victor grabbed a wine bottle from a nearby table. The room froze. "Drop it," Darnell barked. Victor hesitated, the bottle trembling in his grip. "Do it," the younger man yelled. "He deserves it." Darnell saw the calculation flicker in Victor's eyes. Rage wrestling with consequence. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Stop." Victoria stood between the tables, hands raised, her voice sharp, commanding, and used to being ignored. "Enough. This ends now." Victor turned toward her, bottle still raised. "You think you can order us around?" he sneered. "No," Victoria said. "But I can make this worse for you than it already is." She reached into her jacket pocket slowly, deliberately, keeping her movements visible. Phones appeared in Diner's hands. Someone whispered that the police were on their way. Victoria pulled out her phone and held it up. I recognize you, she said, looking at Victor. I read every report tied to the closure. Names. Lawsuits. Arrest records. Victor stiffened. Your town was not abandoned because of profits, she continued. It was abandoned because of safety violations that your union leaders covered up. Violations that killed 2 people. I shut the plant down because the alternative was more funerals. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The younger man's face drained of color. That is a lie, he said weakly. Victoria tapped her screen and turned it toward them. Photographs. Documents. Inspection reports. You were offered retraining funds, she said. All of you. The money was rejected. Your leaders told you it was a trick. Victor's grip loosened. I tried to go there myself, she added. I was threatened. Stones thrown at my car. That is when I stopped trying to negotiate face to face. Darnell watched Victor's anger shift. Confusion. Doubt. The certainty that had fueled them cracked. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Victor dropped the bottle. It shattered harmlessly on the floor. I did not know, he whispered. The younger man sank into a chair, shaking. The police arrived moments later, sweeping in with practiced authority. The men did not resist. As officers cuffed them, Victor looked at Darnell one last time. You always stand in the way, he said. Guess some people never change. Darnell met his gaze. Some things are worth standing in front of. After the restaurant emptied and the glass was swept away, Darnell sat in the kitchen, ribs aching, hands trembling now that the adrenaline had faded. Victoria approached, holding a glass of water. You could have walked away, she said. He took the glass. I have a daughter. She nodded. I have a company. Different responsibilities. Same weight. She reached into her purse and handed him a card. If you ever want to leave this place, call me. Darnell looked at the card, then up at her. I am not looking for favors. This is not a favor, she said. It is recognition. She left quietly. Later that night, when Darnell finally got home, Lily was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. He carried her to bed, kissed her forehead, and thought about how close everything had come to breaking. And how sometimes, standing still was the bravest thing you could do. The following morning arrived without ceremony. Gray light filtered through thin curtains as Darnell stood at the kitchen sink, staring into a mug of coffee he had reheated twice without drinking. His ribs protested every breath. Purple bruises bloomed along his side, souvenirs from a night that refused to fade quietly. Lily sat at the small table, swinging her legs, humming to herself while drawing crooked stars on a piece of scrap paper. Did you fight a bear, Dad? She asked, squinting at his face. He smiled faintly. Something like that. Did you win? He paused. I think nobody lost. She seemed satisfied with that answer. After walking her to school, Darnell headed back toward the bus stop, replaying everything. Victor's face. Victoria's voice. The moment the bottle shattered. The way his body had reacted before his mind gave permission. He had not felt that alive in years. At Lumiere, the atmosphere was different. Whispers followed him. The manager clapped him on the shoulder a little too hard. A couple of regulars nodded with new respect. Mr. Harrison pulled him aside near the wine racks. I reviewed the footage, he said. What you did likely saved lives. The restaurant will cover your medical expenses. Darnell nodded. Thank you. And? Harrison hesitated. The owner wants to meet you. The word owner tightened something in Darnell's chest. That afternoon, his phone buzzed again. An unfamiliar number. This is Victoria Sterling. He stopped walking. I hope I am not interrupting, she continued. I wanted to check on you. I am fine, he replied carefully. I doubt that. I watched the footage too, Silence stretched. I meant what I said last night, she added. About the card. Darnell exhaled. I am not interested in becoming some kind of symbol. Good, she said. Neither am I. I am interested in people who act when it matters. She invited him to her office. No pressure. No expectations. Just a conversation. He agreed before he could overthink it. Her office sat high above the city, glass walls framing everything. It smelled like clean paper and quiet power. Victoria listened more than she spoke. About Lily. About leaving the police force. About why he chose a job where he could disappear. You do not disappear, she said finally. You position yourself. She offered him a role in corporate security. Advisory, not enforcement. Flexible hours. And a salary that made his throat go dry. I will think about it, he said. That is all I ask. As he left, Darnell realized something unsettling. For the first time in a long while, his future felt open instead of narrow. Victor's trial moved quickly. Charges were reduced. Trespassing. Disorderly conduct. Assault. No weapons charges, thanks to Victoria's testimony and the footage. Darnell did not attend, but he followed updates quietly. One evening, weeks later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. Careful. It was from Victor. I was wrong. About her. About you. About that night years ago. I let anger turn into purpose because I had nothing else left. Darnell folded the letter slowly. I start a training program next month. Maybe it will be something. Thank you for not letting me become someone worse. Darnell placed the letter in a drawer, unsure how to feel. Relief. Sadness. A strange peace. He accepted Victoria's offer 2 weeks later. Life shifted. He no longer worked nights. He picked Lily up every day. They cooked dinner together, music playing too loud in their small kitchen. He advised. He listened. He prevented problems before they reached breaking points. One afternoon, Lily asked him, Dad, are you a hero? He laughed softly. No. Then what are you? He thought about the restaurant. The men. The choice. Someone who does not step away. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Darnell stood by the window, city lights blinking like distant signals. He understood now. Courage was not about fighting. It was about staying. Staying present. Staying human. Staying in front of what mattered, even when your hands shook. And sometimes, all it took to change everything was one person refusing to move. Months passed, and the night at Lumiere slowly transformed from a sharp memory into a quiet reference point, something Darnell carried without revisiting every detail. His role at Sterling Ventures was understated by design. No uniform. No badge. Just conversations, assessments, and an instinct for tension before it surfaced. He walked hallways of glass and steel the same way he once walked crowded streets, listening more than speaking. Most executives never noticed him. Victoria did. She valued silence the way others valued authority. Meetings with her were brief, efficient, but never dismissive. She asked questions that cut straight to intention, not optics. One afternoon, she invited Darnell to lunch. Not at a restaurant. In the building cafeteria, surrounded by employees who stared openly, trying to reconcile the man in plain clothes with the quiet confidence he carried. You changed the way I think about risk, she said between bites. How so? I spent years believing danger was abstract. Numbers. Forecasts. Projections. You reminded me it always shows up as people first. Darnell nodded. People are messy. So is leadership, she replied. Outside of work, life found a gentler rhythm. Lily joined a community soccer team. Darnell learned how to cheer without sounding like he was giving orders. One evening, after a game, he noticed a familiar face near the field. Victor. He stood at a distance, hands in his pockets, looking unsure. Darnell approached slowly. "You look better," Darnell said. Victor exhaled. "Training program is tough. Honest work. Feels so clean." They stood in silence, watching kids chase a ball with fierce seriousness. "I never thanked you properly," Victor said. "For stopping me." Darnell shook his head. "You stopped yourself." Victor nodded. "Maybe. Still. You stood there." They shook hands. No apologies. No absolution. Just acknowledgement. As Victor walked away, Darnell felt the final knot loosen. Some confrontations did not end in victory. They ended in understanding. Years later, the story would circulate quietly. A billionaire. 4 angry men. A waiter who stepped forward. It became one of those narratives people simplified, polished, turned into something easier to digest. Darnell never corrected them. He knew the truth lived in smaller moments. In choosing not to look away. In a daughter who grew up seeing her father come home every night. In a woman who learned that power carried responsibility beyond profit. On Lily's graduation day, Victoria sat 2 rows behind Darnell, unnoticed by most. When Lily crossed the stage, Victoria clapped just as hard as anyone. Afterward, she handed Darnell a small envelope. Inside was a photograph. Lumiere. That night. Grainy. Blurred. Darnell standing between chaos and consequence. "For reminding me who we serve," the note read. Darnell framed it at home, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. That history does not always change because someone is strong. Sometimes it changes because someone stays. And in a world that keeps rushing forward, that choice still matters. The years that followed did not feel dramatic. They felt earned. Darnell settled into a version of life that did not demand constant vigilance, but still rewarded awareness. He became someone people sought out quietly, not in emergencies, but before they happened. When tensions rose between departments, he noticed it early. When an employee felt unseen, he listened. When decisions carried unseen consequences, he spoke up, calmly, clearly, without performance. Victoria trusted him. Not blindly. Thoughtfully. She learned to ask a different question in meetings. Who gets hurt if we do this? That question changed outcomes more often than any spreadsheet ever had. At home, Lily grew taller. Louder. More curious about the world. She asked about fairness. About why some people had more. About why others were angry. Darnell never lied. He told her that anger usually came from feeling trapped. And that helping did not always mean fixing. Sometimes it meant standing close enough that people did not feel alone. One evening, while cooking dinner, Lily said casually, "My teacher says heroes wear uniforms." Darnell smiled. "Some do. Then what do others wear?" "Whatever lets them stay," he said. She thought about that, then nodded, like it made perfect sense. Lumiere eventually changed owners. The chandeliers remained, but the tone softened. A plaque near the entrance quietly honored staff who demonstrated exceptional courage and care. Darnell's name was there, small, understated. He never visited the restaurant alone. Only with Lily, on special occasions. They always sat near the window. One night, Lily asked, "Is this where it happened?" He nodded. "Were you scared?" "Yes." "Then why did you stay?" He looked at her, really looked. "Because leaving would have taught me something I did not want you to learn." She smiled and reached for his hand. Outside, the city moved like it always had. Busy. Unaware. Full of people carrying private storms. Darnell understood now that most turning points never announced themselves. They arrived disguised as ordinary moments, asking a single question. "Will you stay, Or will you step away? Victoria stepped down as chief executive years later. Her farewell memo did not mention profits or growth. It spoke about accountability, about proximity, about remembering the people behind every decision. Darnell attended her final board meeting, standing at the back, and visible by choice. As she passed him afterward, she said quietly, "You changed me." He shook his head. "You listened." "That is rarer," she replied. They never worked together again. They did not need to. Some alliances existed only to redirect a path, not to walk it forever. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Darnell sat on a park bench while Lily read beside him. Victor passed by with a group of trainees. He nodded once. Solid. Grounded. Darnell nodded back. No words were needed. The world had not become kinder. But a few people had become braver. And sometimes, that was enough to tilt the balance. If anyone ever asked Darnell what changed everything that night, he never mentioned courage. He said it was timing. 4 men. 1 woman. 1 decision. A moment where stepping forward felt heavier than stepping back. And yet, he stayed. And because he stayed, others did too. That was how the story ended. Not with applause, but with continuity. Life, moving forward, slightly altered, because one person refused to move.